So I want to talk about this thing about dealing with mediocrity. So I really like that you have plotted this trajectory of education in Nigeria. So it puts a lot of things into perspective for
yes.
us and our viewers at home, actually. So given and what I'm able to deduce from this particular trajectory is Nigeria reacting a lot rather than acting. So we're reacting in form of, the JAM board seems to me to be a reaction to what was going on at the time. The post-UTME body as well seems to be a reaction as well, rather than, an action to actually, to help to determine and measure and actually measure students properly. So now, given all of this, challenges and all of this situation, let's now move into the context of the situation where a student is in university, a student who probably shouldn't be in that particular course is there. Now, my question is actually to your role as a lecturer, as somebody who is actually, interfering and dealing with the students, on a daily basis after all this, higgity, after all this situation with the admission has happened. What role do you have or do you play as a lecturer and I'll give you an example, in dealing with the students that probably isn't equipped or, isn't intellectually capable of being in that course? How do you now deal with situations like that?
Well, the first role the lecturer plays in this situation is to play the role of a role model.
Okay.
Okay, so you deliver your lectures with tact and with grace, and you shift from being a role model to also, part-time, evolving into becoming a counselor. And it also depends on your designation at a given point in time. In the Nigerian university systems, for instance, in the public university where I teach and lecture, you will probably be appointed as what you call a course advisor.
Yes.
In America, you call it a year tutor.
Okay.
For a particular class, for a particular set in your department, in your faculty. So you have that responsibility, okay, to be an overseer over the students, and you prepare the results, you present their results to your department, to your faculty, and onward, to the Senate. So at that level, you can actually monitor their performance, you can map their performance, and you can also monitor their behavior. Okay, but that is just one thing. The other thing I think we need to do and we need to introduce, especially from the secondary school level, is what I would call talent management. Talent management. Talent management would mean, taking it away from the context of entertainment, would mean, I think I'm trying to look at, for better want of expression, maybe capability management. Okay, so I give an example of myself. Growing up as a young boy, that was the era in Nigeria, in the world where computers were coming into the world and coming into Nigeria. So sometimes in the 80s, my father traveled to England on vacation, and he met this young Nigerian chap that was earning back then £150,000 a year as a computer scientist. So daddy came back, and daddy was like, everybody's going to study computer science. Everybody's going to study computer engineering. And I think I was in primary school or secondary school then. So I was all about, I'm going to become a computer scientist. I'm going for computer engineering. And that was all Daddy wanted to hear. But I didn't have the capability for that.
Right.
I was more of a commercial student. And now I've ended up, teaching business. I was more of a student that, wanted to interact. I was more artistic. So we need to have a system where the capabilities, where the talents, where the cognitive capabilities of an individual can actually be mapped. When we can map that from the nursery school, they have these capabilities in developed countries. When we can map that from the nursery, primary, secondary, we can now determine whether or not a student should even go into the university. The emphasis on university education in Nigeria is because of the kind of society we are in. Because we so much emphasize paper certification. And that's why we're churning out a lot of students who have degrees but do not have pedigree.
Okay.
We're having universities that are forced to accommodate students to obtain degrees, and when these students get out, They have degrees, but they don't have pedigree.
They don't understand what they've learned.
They have no pedigree.
Yeah.
So they don't even fit into the society. They don't fit into the training for which they have, been admitted to come receive over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And then I give another example of myself. I cut out my teeth in life in the banking industry. And whilst in the banking industry, in training, my colleagues in training school were telling me, you are a teacher. You're not supposed to be here. You are a teacher. Because the kind of questions I was asking, the kind of explanations I demanded from those who came to train us, those were academic questions. So I definitely didn't belong to the banking industry. I belong to the academia. All right. Then amongst those who came to train us, surprisingly, were doctors. Engineers who came to teach us accounting, who came to teach us trade finance. And these were people like me whose parents said, I want you to be a doctor. I want you to be an engineer. And they did those things for their parents, came out with degrees without pedigree and said, no, I actually belong to the artistic world, to the commercial world, and somehow found their way back. So it's a big role, that lecturers have to play, but the bigger role is to be played by the system. And by some parastatals like the Ministry of Education and different bodies of education across different regions in the country and different, states in the country. It's a long-term project, but I think the earlier we start, and I think I want to take the word out of your mouth and, transform it, we have to become very proactive. We have been very reactive, in our response to education, in our planning for education. But our planning now should become very, very proactive so that Nigeria can produce the next Bill Gates, Nigeria can produce great scientists, and over the next 10 years, I hope we can have an educational system that will prepare Nigeria and Nigerians, to be in the moon. On the moon, rather.
Exactly.
10 years from today.
Yeah.
That's my prayer for this country.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be able to get there as soon as possible. But then I'd like to know, how can Nigerian students or students generally tap into the opportunities that are available to them in the university or tertiary spaces? Now, before you joined us on the show, we're talking about extracurricular activities that actually, form a large part of a student. Because I remember when we're graduating, they'll tell us that you've been found
worthy in character
and in learning. But then the only thing that we get is learning. The character part is here and there. And it kind of confuses me because we are not really encouraged. Our parents sometimes don't even encourage us to indulge in extracurricular activities because they feel it's a waste of time, a waste of energy. It's not good for you. Just face your studies. You hear that a lot. Remember the child of whom you are and all of that. Face your studies. Don't go and play ball and then go. But how can students in this age and time, also noting the fact that we are now in a pandemic era and learning has changed from how we used to be? You call it brick and wall?
Yeah, we've shifted from the brick and mortar model.
Brick and mortar model,
to
yes.
the virtual model of learning now.
Exactly.
We'll call it again remote education. Everything is gone remote.
So but how can they tap into opportunities and how can they see that, some of these activities that they are not really engaging in can actually help them in becoming better students and moving forward, becoming better humans in life?
Okay, that's a very good question. From where I'm coming from, I would attest to the fact that the curriculum is quite robust. Robust in the sense that if you're a science student in university, you're exposed to what we call general studies.
Right.
General studies mean you would have to learn something from sociology, you probably have to learn something from entrepreneurship and business, and you have to learn something from the arts. It's compulsory. You must pass those courses before you graduate.
Okay.
But where is the world going now? The world is going beyond culture.
Yes.
The world is going beyond the arts. The world is, going beyond entrepreneurship. The world is building capabilities. We are here talking about this. Some people are on the other side of the world thinking of how to colonize Mars, thinking of how to colonize the moon so that they can move there. If we ever get to the point where we biodegrade the earth, which I hopefully we will not get to. So what students should actually do to take advantage of opportunities that are available is very simple. One, our students have to be open-minded.
All right.
Have to be open-minded, and they have to have benchmarks. Yeah. I would give you an example of what I know exists, even as a student, some 20, 25 years back. A good number of Nigerian students don't visit the library. If I should ask you, I'm sure, how many times did you visit the library?
I went there. I did go a lot because I had to. I had to.
Yeah. So, how many times did you go to?
Library was my favorite place.
Yeah.
It is my favorite.
You guys are an exception. Because even as a student, now a lecturer, I can't remember how many times I visited the library. I had to be in the library when it was time for exams because the library was the best place to read.
Yes, we did that too.
That's where you have constant light.
Yes.
To read overnight.
Okay.
So we students have to be very, very studious. They have to broaden their horizon in when it comes to learning. Learning is not just about what course you actually have come to do in the university. Learning is quite broad. And that's why the kind of curriculum that exists outside Nigeria, it makes it very broad. You can have yourself studying 2 courses at the same time. You say, okay, I'm a business major, I'm a theater arts minor, I'm a sociology major, I'm an IT, or I'm a photography minor. So that curriculum has to be made robust on our part as a system. But whilst pending that, students on their own must take advantage of, grabbing different array of things that they can do, extracurricular things they can do, like photography, like entrepreneurship, like IT. For instance, let me make you laugh, if you would laugh. I realized that a lot of young Nigerians are making a lot of money now. And what are they doing? Technology. Technology is the in thing now. Yeah. So recently, a good number of businesses, a good number of fintech companies, these boys have been able to spin off and spin out of Nigeria, and they've attracted investments. Yes. So at my age now, I want to go and start learning coding because I'm hoping that if I can do that over the next 6 months, I can spin off a good idea, incubate a new business, and have an app. And who knows, you guys may be running on that app 6-7 months from today. Yeah. Okay. So it's about broadening your horizon, looking at your environment, scanning the environment, seeing what is obtainable, and having a strategic mindset, strategic thinking. Where are we now as a country? Where am I as an individual fitting into this country? Where are we going to, and how do we get there? Once you have these 3 questions at the back of your mind, it's best way for you, to appropriate opportunities that will never cease to exist in our society.
Okay, to wrap up the interview this morning, I've had a lot of I've learned quite a lot from you this morning, to be very honest. But, to wrap up this morning, can we let's have a final words from you, final word of admonition to students, to universities, and even to the system that you are clearly not very happy with. So let's have your final words.
Well, the Nigerian educational system is in a reverse mode, and the truth must be told. It's funny to remember and to think when you go back into history that a good number of Africans that have succeeded today actually came and got their education in Nigeria. Likes of Thabo Mbeki and a good number of South Africans were actually shifted, moved to Nigeria to come study when the apartheid system couldn't afford them to study. Back in the 60s and the 70s, you had a good number of Europeans and Americans who came to Nigerian universities for exchange programs. But the reverse is the case now. We now have our own students, we now have our own citizens being forced to even go out of the country, to go to smaller neighboring West African countries to get what, in quotes, is supposed to be quality education. We can reverse this mode. I want to call upon the government to lay more emphasis on education. Most countries that have done well in the world today have done well because when they, drop their budgets, they have as much as about 30%, 40% of the budget devoted to education. No country can go or grow higher than its level and standard of education. So the earlier we return to the emphasis and the basic foundation of our society, which is education, which is educating our citizens properly, the better for us. Once we get that right, most of the things we're seeing in Nigeria today will disappear. And I have hope in this country, and I think Nigeria is going to be great.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We just had Kenneth Ekewa from the Department of Business Administration, the University of Lagos, join us this morning to have a very deep conversation on education and the products that we bring out from education in Nigeria and everywhere. And one thing that I have learned in this conversation that we've had this morning with Kenneth is the fact that we need to go back to the scratch. Yeah. Let's go and see what is wrong, and let's see how we can now build that foundation to have better, students, better education in the country. And he has also also called on the stakeholders to do the needful. I mean, it's a lot for students at the moment, the ones that are struggling, and especially the ones that didn't get, what they vied for, and then they are now struggling to study and then come out with something so that at least they become somebody in life. And another thing is some people, study for degree, but they do not have pedigree.
Pedigree. That one really stuck. That one really stuck.
That's something.
Yeah.